at 1:30. We will be beginning sharp at 1:30, so you've got a couple minutes warning.
God welcomes all, strangers and friends. God's love is strong and it never ends. God welcomes all, strangers and friends. God's love is strong and it never ends. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you've had chance for lunch, fresh air, comfort breaks, and that is for those who are online as well as those of us who are here in Rutherglen. Now that I can see the screen more clearly as well, there's somebody else that I would like to just give a particular welcome to who is joining us online today as a visitor, and that is the Reverend Dr. Juan Cruz, who is with us, joining with us from Aberdeen. Juan is a minister of the Reformed Church, the Presbyterian Church of the Philippines, and has been given a certificate of eligibility to serve within the United Reformed Church. And so Juan joins us today as part of his learning and familiarisation with the United Reformed Church, and we're glad to welcome you with us today, Juan. This afternoon, the focus of our meeting is very much the world in which we live. We have the report of the Synod Mission Committee, as well as a resolution that comes to us from Helensburgh United Reformed Church. We had planned this session so that as many members of the Mission Committee as possible would be contributing and sharing in the life of the committee, which has only been meeting for a year. So I personally think it's done a huge amount of work in its first year. Sarah Moore, who is the convener, is on sabbatical, so Sarah's not able to be with her. Yvonne Coulter was going to present the report, but sadly Yvonne too has had a family bereavement and is unable to be with us. So I am going to briefly introduce the report, and then various other members of the committee will bring the different sections of the report where we have resolutions to our attention. And that really is the model of how the Synod Mission Committee is working. We have people who hold portfolios or particular briefs, and they are the ones that carry forward different aspects of the committee's remit. So you'll find the report as paper D in your papers, and I've turned the wrong page. And just to draw out a number of items from that report, we were delighted with the response to the Dementia Awareness Day that was held in Livingston United Parish Church in November of last year. Around 30 people from across the Synod gathered for that day. And building on the success and the calls at that day for another similar type of awareness day, the committee has decided that on Saturday, the 29th of November, we will hold another awareness day, and it will be on the topic of neurodiversity. The venue is not yet finalised, but we're hopeful it will be in Edinburgh. But please take a note of that. Saturday, the 29th of November, Awareness Day on Neurodiversity. You'll see in the report that over the last year we've been able to support a number of churches with projects that have been funded through small grants from the Inverurie Mission Trust. The monies in the trust are almost expended. Applications are still welcome. And at the October Synod meeting, the committee plans to give a presentation of some of the projects that have been supported over the years from this money that came from the closure of Inverurie Congregational Church a good number of years ago, as a celebration of local mission that's been supported through that fund. So if your church has received a grant from the Inverurie Mission Trust at any point, and you're able to send in a couple of sentences and even better a photo, please send them to Jess at Children's Ministry at urcscotland.org.uk, and we will be compiling that for the October Synod meeting. Changes have also been made to the Children and Youth Work small grants to increase the amounts of money available to churches, and we will also, in the Mission Committee, be looking again at the application forum for the Synod Development Fund to make that more clear as to who can apply for grants. The Synod Development Fund is available to lay people as well as churches, and all these grants now come under the umbrella of the Mission Committee. So that's some future work that we will be doing. And as was indicated in the nominations report from the Synod Executive, the committee in particular has a vacancy for a secretary. So if you are interested in the work that we are presenting today and could offer skill as a secretary, please speak to the Synod clerk. These are all the kind of updates that we'd like to offer from the report. We're going to invite any questions or any discussion of the report before we move to the individual resolutions. So are there any comments or questions? Yes, John Sanderson.
John Sanderson, Rocket Glen, URC. You mentioned the Youth and Children's Work small grants which were available. When we changed the way we did Youth and Children's Work a number of years ago, Synod agreed to a model where we had a children's worker, a youth worker, and there were both large grants available to help with the employment of a children's or youth worker within local churches. There appears to be no mention of these large grants anymore. I'm wondering if they're still available.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? In that case, I'll respond to John. Yes, we are aware of the small grants that were, the large grants that were set up for the employment of workers. No application has ever been received for that, and so the committee has had an initial conversation about how that large grant money may be reviewed or allocated in different ways. That has also gone to the Synod Executive and it's come back to the Mission Committee, and so it's something that we are continuing to have discussion about, and I would hope that at October Synod we would be able to advise on what has been decided in relation to the large grant portion of the monies that were set aside, whether there will be changes to it or whether it will still be available for the employment of local workers, but recognising that no applications have been received for that. That's one of the questions that we're looking at. So it hasn't been forgotten, it's just not concluded. Are there any other questions or any items for discussion on the report? I've lost my internet connection, so I now can't see people who are online. You'll have to wave extra wildly at me. In that case, can I ask people to show if they are ready to accept the report by showing your orange or your blue cards? I see only orange cards in the room. People online, are you ready to vote? I see yellow. Good. In that case, could I ask you using your green card or your electronic hand to vote to receive the report? Thank you. The report is accepted. Any against? The report is accepted. Thank you. We turn then to Resolution 8, which is the Christian Aid 80th anniversary. Despite it being a very cold Sunday afternoon in January, I was pleased to represent the Synod at a service to mark the beginnings of the year of celebrations to commemorate 80 years since the formation of what is now known to us as Christian Aid. And the paper gives something of the story of Christian Aid's beginnings, as well as its work today, and a trailer for Christian Aid Week in 2025. The Synod has had a long engagement with Christian Aid, not least because some of our now retired ministers have worked as staff of Christian Aid, and for many years now, the Christian Aid office based in Edinburgh has been in Augustine United Church, in addition to the work that so many of our local congregations contribute to supporting Christian Aid locally through committees and more broadly through Commitment for Life. And so it seemed appropriate to me in January that this was a good opportunity to celebrate the work of Christian Aid and to encourage us all in our support of that organisation, and particularly to encourage people to find out and, if possible, to participate in the 80th anniversary tree planting project. As I reflected earlier, this seems to me even more significant in light of the UK government's decision to slash the international aid budget. And so our commitment to Christian Aid is part of our prophetic calling to live the hope that is within us, to sing a new world into being, as we have shared in our Synod meeting today. And so I hope that the passing of this resolution is not simply an opportunity to congratulate Christian Aid, to offer our support to not just their staff, but also the local communities and local partners that they are supporting throughout the world, but also to send a clear message that our concern for the world's poorest people is something that affects us all, and our well-being is directly affected by their well-being as a global community. So I have pleasure in proposing the resolution that is before you. The National Synod of Scotland meeting on 8th March 2025 gives thanks for the work of Christian Aid over the last 80 years, encourages local churches to engage with Christian Aid during this anniversary year by giving, acting and praying as they are able, and encourages local churches to participate in the 80th anniversary tree planting project. So, are there any questions? Yes, Craig Jesson.
Craig Jesson, Lanarkshire Trinity. B, on the resolution as it is presented on the screens. I'm sorry I'm releasing my inner John Bremner. Makes no sense to me.
Slide is incorrect. If you are able to have sight of paper D1, you will find the full resolution on the paper, and that was what I read out, but I will read it again just because the slide is incorrect. So B should read, encourages local churches to engage with Christian Aid during this anniversary year by giving, acting and praying as they are able. Thank you. I think we've got that corrected now. Are there any further comments or questions on the resolution? See nothing. Is there anything online? Sorry, I can't see the... No, thanks, Neil. Are we ready to move to a vote? If you could show with your... Sorry.
Moderator.
Yep.
This is Sarah Kemp here at the Piddycock. I was just wondering, could you expand a wee bit more on the participation of churches in the tree planting project?
Certainly. I'm going to ask John, can I put you on the spot? Can you say a little bit more about the tree planting project? Just that
John Sanderson, Lough Glen URC. The Scottish Christian Aid, we're looking at different ways of how to mark the 80 years. And one of the ideas that came up within the a group of representatives from different churches. It's not a formal group, it's a kind of informal group that simply advise the staff at Christian Aid, and I'm part of that group. One of the ideas that came up was that a good way to mark the 80 years anniversary would be simply to encourage churches, where possible, to plant trees. An approach has been made to the Woodland Trust, and as long as there are sufficient orders for trees, then the Woodland Trust will provide these to churches free of charge. Churches can be creative if you've got members with big gardens or whatever, or you can work ecumenically and try and work out something with your ecumenical neighbours. You try and get as many trees. Rotherglen URC are going ahead with this. Unfortunately, well, we are the first church, I think, in Scotland to do this, so we're unable to get one from the Rutland Trust, so we're having to buy a tree, but I'm delighted to say we're going to actually get a nice little cherry tree right in the corner of the driveway there, and that will hopefully be getting planted at the end of this month. And then we'll get a little plaque or a banner so that anyone passing is reminded of Christian Aid.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Thank you. Yes, Ewan Harley.
Ewan Harley, Pastoral Committee. Can I ask that if we pass this resolution, is it somehow going to be communicated to Christian Aid?
Thank you, Ewan. Sarah.
Sorry, can I just ask, I know we need trees, and I don't want to upset anyone, Richard, but would Christian Aid not benefit from a financial donation, or is it just to raise awareness of Christian Aid?
Thank you. Any other, just looking online, can't see any hands. Just to respond briefly, yes, Ewan, we will definitely tell our friends in Christian Aid that we have passed these resolutions. I've been working with Charlie Meikle-John in putting together the text and the background paper, so they certainly know that we've been doing that, and we will do that. Sarah, I think we know that Christian Aid will always appreciate the financial gifts that we are able to make. Sometimes that is really significant because they get match funding from government sources as well. So whatever financially we're able to give, that is really important. I think the idea of the tree planting, as John has said, has come from the Scottish Informal Group. And for me is, again, a real sign of our hope and commitment for a world which is different, in which everybody is valued and included. Now, I'm about to get my church history probably wrong again, but I do think it was Martin Luther that said one of the most radical things you can do is plant a tree, not knowing how it will flourish and grow in the future. So by perhaps joining in this tree planting project, it gives us something tangible to look at as an expression of our hope for the world. Are there anything else, or are we ready to move to a vote? In that case, can I ask you to use your green cards? Those who are in favour of Resolution 8, please show. Thank you. And those online? Great. And any against? Okay. The resolution is carried. Thank you. So, most appropriately, we move to environmental policy, and David will present this. This is paper D2 and resolution 5.
Are you there with the slides at the back, gentlemen? Yep. Okay. Well, friends, if you've read the paper, or even if you haven't, this is not icing, this is cake. Jesus called his followers to take notice especially of nature and of fellow creatures. And that's also what that completely contemporary parable that you may know about the house on the rock and the house on the sand is about. So an environmental involvement relationship is not some trivia about ticking boxes and just fixing things. It's not even about worrying about tomorrow, but rather about responding about surviving, and absolutely also about enjoying what it means to be church today. You'll see there is a biblical theological basis. That is not a formality, it is about who we are. There are no big decisions in church life which do not have an environmental aspect. An environmental policy saves a lot of time pointlessly going over matters which should be pretty obvious, one of which is the undeniable fact, and I don't say that lightly, that human activity at all levels is knowingly and sinfully messing up the balance of climate and biodiversity, which we ourselves completely rely on. In Lent, we have plenty of reminders about sin and about the traps it lays for even the most wary. Sin is what doesn't just happen, it is caused, and we are mixed up in it. But it also calls for healing, forgiveness, and change of mind and heart, and even, yes, even travel arrangements. In the news this year, you will have seen how trashing the environment and bullying and lying about the urgency of the crisis goes with abuse of power. Is that who we want to align ourselves with? Well, you might find an answer. Just speaking ecumenically, the Scottish Episcopal Church, if we've got representatives here, get out your halo, they are giving a very, very strong lead. But also last week you might have seen a mission statement from the Church of Scotland which talks about Jesus a lot but does not mention care for creation, let alone the crisis of nature and climate. In the URC, we definitely love our ecumenical neighbours. That's exactly why the phrase from the Gospels which comes to mind is, "It shall not be so amongst you." So because we love our neighbours, if anyone talks mission, ask them how it's green, in politics, in church, or whatever. Environmental policy is about mission, discipleship, witness, evangelism, and daily church life, all of which are expressed today in love and care and speaking up for the earth, for neighbours in creation through whom God cares for us. This is good news for all creation, as the risen Christ himself has it. In the Scottish Synod, this is who we are. We don't despair, we aspire. 10 years ago, we led the way on pulling out of investments which harm the earth. Since 2013, this synod has supported the only full-time environmental chaplaincy in Europe. So we might be small, but that's no reason not to do what's right. And the aspiration to net zero, that is, as a minimum, to do good which cancels out the sinful knowing damage we blunder into in daily life, that is a spiritual, practical focus for who we are. This policy is thought through for this synod by people in this synod. It's not fixing the whole world, but looking at living with integrity as part of the world's healing. You'll see on the paper there also the tree and the shoots and the seeds. And they give some very practical suggestions, but if I pull out and rephrase a couple of them. Get on with it. Don't mither about tomorrow. Don't go on and on doing things which make things worse. If you're making any changes, don't lock yourself into something. It is truth that sets you free. And don't pretend you're on a different planet or living in the last century when we weren't already in the middle of this crisis. And perhaps above all, enjoy. I'm so glad we've got that word enjoy in. In the last couple of years, folks have sometimes said to me, how dare you smile when you can see the state of the planet? The answer, and this paper equips us, is that there are plenty of options for living out our care for creation. Choose the ones you enjoy, because joy sustains us. Finally, also, there is that recommendation that you get involved or more involved with Eco Congregation Scotland. If I haven't visited you yet, get in touch. I'm available. I love the URC. I even go out of my way to visit URC congregations. But also, as everything, we need your support. Some of you are very tiny congregations. You can actually join with almost no expense whatsoever. But we need your support in prayer and involvement, and I hope we've seen that bears it works itself out in the joy and the commitment and the sense of purpose of congregations. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So the policy paper is before us with the resolution. First of all, can I ask if there are any comments or questions? Just looking online, I'm not seeing anybody. Yes, Ewan. Could you have a microphone, please? Thank you.
Ewan Harley, Pastoral Committee. I welcome this report. I think it's really well put together. I would just ask for a little bit more clear guidance about how to offset, if we are going to offset.
Thank you. And the PD Kirk are waving at us.
This is Ray Kemp here again at the PD Kirk. Can you give us some clarification, the date that this energy performance rating of C must be achieved by?
Thanks for that question, Ray. John Bremner? John?
Hello, John Bremner, Ecumenical Officer, whose wife was involved in bringing up the report, so I'll be careful. Sorry, just at number 1 on the introduction, the second sentence, the General Assembly policy can be found at, and then mine just says ad hoc something. So, but presumably, is that the reference that there is in the previous page when it says relevant documents?
I presume so. The General Assembly one is on the General Assembly website, and it's pretty good.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? If I might just respond to those on behalf of the little group that worked on the policy. So yes, John, I'm afraid in the paper the link is lost, but it is the link that's on the front page for the General Assembly Environmental Policy. You'll see reference to it there. To Ewan, guidance about net zero. So one of the things that we've realised across the church is that exactly that. It's one thing saying that we have an environmental policy and that we wish to try and arrive at net zero by a certain date, but then the question is, how do we get there? How do we get there as the church at General Assembly and at Synod and as local churches? So the Net Zero Task Group of the denomination has put together a template of questions that synods are being asked to complete by the 31st of March. We are encouraged in our responding to that template with questions to share this with local churches and begin a conversation, because it's a conversation that involves us all. This year, as we complete the template for the first time, we're not expected to get everything right, but we are being asked to, if you like, set our base level so that we know where we need to go from here. And there are resources on the URC website. If you Google net zero, search for net zero within the website, that will lead you to various carbon calculators and other schemes for beginning to measure what your carbon footprint is and how you can move towards net zero. Some of you may be aware that this year my visits to churches are primarily going to be with elders, and there are a whole range of topics that I would like to sit down and share with you, and this is one of them as well. So we will be having conversations about net zero, which we'll be looking at the template and beginning to think about how we determine what our base level is, so that we know in future years that we are making progress. And this is a conversation that's going to involve a number of different people. There are obviously resource implications, both in the care of buildings, but also in the accessing of funds to be able to enable us to transition towards net zero, as well as this being a question for the Mission Committee to be looking at, and indeed, no doubt, also the Pastoral Committee, because we have to think too about manses and where our ministers live and those kind of things. So we're beginning a journey. We're beginning a journey as Synod and as local churches, and I hope that in the coming months we will be able to do that together and identify what resources are already available to us and to identify if there are further resources that are available to us. And folks up in Orkney, I hope that in the same way kind of answers your question that as far as I'm aware, there's not a set date for achieving the energy ratings. This is a journey of progress that we're going on to, and we recognise that that will be more challenging in some places than in others because of the nature of the building, the nature of fuel sources and the amount of insulation that's available and all these kind of questions. So it's a journey we're on together, and that's more important than meeting particular targets at particular times. Can I ask then, I'm not seeing other people wishing to speak, a show of orange cards, whether we're ready to move to adopting the resolution? Thank you. I think we're ready to vote. So can I ask voting members to show with their green cards, please, whether you are willing. Sorry, is there somebody else wishing to speak? No? Okay. Thank you. And those online? Thank you. So the resolution is passed. We move then to paper D3, a church with people on the margins, and as with the environmental policy, a small group connected with the Mission Committee worked on this. Alice Gilbert, who is CRCW based in Priest Hill, was part of the group, and she will present this for us this afternoon. Thank you.
So this report was put together by myself, Port Glasgow and Drum Chapel, and we just want to start by acknowledging the role that Lindsay Weir played in the report and say how saddened we are by her death last month. From the report, it comes out of a General Assembly report from Northwestern Synod, which encouraged other synods to come up with this strategy for themselves. I particularly want to draw your attention to point 6, which lays out what the strategy for our synod is and focuses on such things as the living wage. So churches, if you employ someone, look at being living wage employers, registering for it, looking at food resources in your area, the housing makeup, and encouraging communities to get involved, so community empowerment, campaigning, and those kind of things. Don't just skip over to that bit, because there's 3 really good project reports there from Priest Hill, Drum Chapel, and Port Glasgow as well, so do read those. And we also want to particularly draw your attention in part 6 to using the Synod's resources. And by that we mean me. So the proposal is that 20% of my time is allocated to the Synod, and it is to offer you support as churches to look at what the local needs in your area are, to sort of look at various partnerships in place, what's going on in your area, and to also actually look at a church, what you can offer. Because there's no point going in and saying, let's do this, when 5 other churches in your area do it. Or coming up with something that you don't actually have the resources or capabilities to do. And that's really sort of me. I think if you want my time, I think it's fair to say contact Gemma, or you'll find me somewhere in the Synod handbook. I think that was it, was it?
Thank you, Alice, for introducing that report to us. Okay, and we have opportunity for questions, comments or discussion on the report. Fiona.
Fiona Bennett, Augustine United. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Mission Committee for the report. It's a really good report, it's really encouraging and felt really helpful to be able to share. I just wanted to note that it talks about people experiencing poverty as people on the margins, but those are not the only people on the margins to whom a lot of what the theological and other statements, sociological statements, would refer to in this report. I'm really conscious within our congregation, we have just started a group that is a neurodivergent support group, so people who are neurodiverse, people who are living with different abilities, physically and otherwise, and we are highly conscious that in this particular time, the transgender community are very marginalised, are stigmatised, and are experiencing a lot of brutality in our culture as well as across the world. It's really important to understand that those people are very much on the margins and are hugely vulnerable. And if you would like to hear stories about those communities or hear stories from those communities, then, please do. But it would be really good to add some of those stories into this report as well. Those are also people on the margins. And it would be good if it was acknowledged. Thank you.
Ben.
Also from Augustine. It's a very good report, and I very much commend it, but are we not getting into a very difficult position socially at the moment? Now that we've, both the former government and the current government in Westminster are talking in ways that do devalue people who are poorer, and there doesn't seem to be any commitment in public policy for people who are struggling financially nowadays. And I'm just havering, but it's just, I think it's an important point.
Any further comments or questions? If I could maybe just respond to Fiona and Ben's comments. Yes, absolutely, Fiona, the margins are not confined or inhabited only by those who experience poverty. I think as as Alice said in the beginning of the report, this came from a resolution that was brought by the Northwestern Synod to General Assembly last year, and the focus was very much upon poverty. And so that has been the starting place. But as, I think we would all hope that policy decisions are living documents, that policies need to be continually lived and renewed, and so therefore the expansion of that as it develops is something that I hope we will certainly bear in mind, that those who are on the margins for a variety of different reasons. Ben, in terms of the engagement with public policy, in October there was to be a gathering of people from churches to learn more about a minimum income guarantee for Scotland, which sadly didn't take place because of lack of interest. I was very disappointed in that. It was part of Challenge Poverty Week in Scotland, and I was pleased to have been invited to participate in that along with the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. We have put in our policy our intention, if we pass this as a synod, to campaign for a minimum income guarantee in Scotland in the run-up to the next Scottish parliamentary elections in 2026. This is something that is not simply about, well, it's a kind of combination of appropriate wage levels, as in the living wage, appropriate levels of social security support for those who require them, and also access to training and other employment opportunities. It's taking quite a holistic look to say what it is that is required for a minimum income guarantee for everybody in Scotland. This is something that political parties in Scotland have welcomed in principle, but as with anything else, and particularly in the current financial climate, turning that in principle decision into an actual manifesto pledge is complex. But it's something that there seems to be growing momentum around in terms of conversation in Scottish society. One of the ideas that is emerging in the Scottish Church Leaders Forum is that come the next Scottish parliamentary election, the church leaders in Scotland speak with one voice on a particular issue. And where we are settling at the moment is thinking that poverty in Scotland could be that issue, that we can build on existing work that has been carried out by many of our churches individually and collectively to offer a clear voice as people of the churches in Scotland about poverty in our own nation. So this is something that I hope will develop. There has been an initiative from the First Minister that the Church Leaders Forum has responded to warmly for a conversation amongst civil society about the nature of life in Scotland that the churches have been invited to participate in. And I do believe that collectively we can say something together based on our track record of speaking out against poverty within Scotland. So I hope that as the months progress and we move closer to that election whenever it happens in 2026, this is something that we can all get involved with, and certainly we will bring back to Synod to seek support as is appropriate for that. I see. Oh, sorry,
Hi,
Peter Kirk.
it's Wendy Bowen here in the PD Kirk. I welcome your comments that you've said about fighting for poverty, but I also would be really useful, especially for our rural and island communities, for that voice to be heard, because it is quite a distinct issue of poverty that we have across islands, because our cost of living can be up to 40% higher than in urban situations. And the other thing I think is really important to fight for is for the removal of the cap on the third child. And that I also feel that's something that we need to look at, because child poverty is too high, with 25% of our children living in poverty. It's not good enough.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. Yes, the perspective of rural poverty and the particular issues and needs of rural and island communities, and also the cap benefit, two-child cap benefit, is something to be addressed as a significant issue in addressing child poverty. I'm just repeating it because it wasn't entirely clear, the sound quality at our end. I see no further hands. Could you use your orange cards to indicate whether we're ready to move to a vote? Thank you very much. And so therefore, using your green cards, could you please indicate support of this resolution? Thank you. And online. And any against? The resolution is carried. We've had lots of words so far. We're going to take a little change of presentation and watch a video now that has been produced, that is brought to us by our racial justice advocate, Yvonne Coulter, as you said, Yvonne is sadly not able to be with us today. At General Assembly 2023, the United Reformed Church agreed a confession and apology for the involvement of its predecessor bodies in the transatlantic slave trade, and our commitment as a church, as a denomination, to seek ways of repairing justice as we acknowledged and took responsibility for the legacies of slavery that we were connected with and complicit in. That apology was taken by the then moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, Reverend Dr. Tessa Henry Robinson, to Jamaica last year, and was presented to the Jamaican government, who received the apology. And a video has been made of Tessa's experience and of that visit to Jamaica and the receiving of the apology. In the Synod, we've had in recent years a number of presentations from Karen Campbell, the Secretary for Intercultural and Global Ministries within the United Reformed Church, speaking about the legacies of slavery. And we're all encouraged as synods to share in that journey as the URC. So today is the latest stage in the journey for us to share in this video together. If it's something that you would like to view again or use in your churches, you will find it on the URC website. But for now, let's take a break from talking and watch the video. Fiona.
Slight point of order. Tessa was the moderator of the General Assembly of the United Reformed Church.
What? Oh. I do apologise. Yes. Tessa moderates the General Assembly of the United Reformed Church. Thank you for that correction. Let's watch the video together.
I don't know, what I came expecting, but I do know what I met, and I met Jamaican people who are genuinely cool and calm.
Oh, praise the Lord! Oh, praise the Lord! Praise God in His sanctuary! Oh, praise the Lord! Oh, praise the Lord! Oh, praise the Lord!
Those who argue for reparation in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, on the other hand, contend we still continue to suffer the effects of centuries of slavery in the now, in the today. Additionally, reparationists argue that though the descendants of slave owners were not the perpetrators of the injustices of slavery, the descendants of slave owners are still benefiting from the transatlantic slavery in the now and to this day.
Because I think, it's a difficult road towards unity. But everything starts when you begin to genuinely feel sorry, and then you have conversations about the remorse across the Caribbean, Africa, and wherever the African diaspora are. I think that the unity begins in the confessing what you have done and in confessing how it actually feels. So you have the two sides, what you've done, and on the other side, how that made you feel and what that has done to your community. And then comparing notes, and perhaps there will be unity in those kinds of conversations. And I think it is only then you can become one of the people that will be on the road to unity.
On legacies of slavery and reparations comes under my remit. So that's why Tessa graciously asked me to stand here with her and to introduce the apology. But it might seem strange to people to see two black women standing here representing the United Reformed Church and offering the apology. So I'm saying a few words to put that into context. And I'm going to start by sharing a poem. It's a short one. It's called Black. If the night sky wasn't inky, could the stars shine so bright? And if there wasn't darkness, tell me, how could light be light? No dark depths of earth, how would the flora grow? Black is essential, don't you know? You tell me black is no good, the shade of evil, shade of sin. How do I then make sense of the blackness of my skin? The skin I didn't choose, no more than you could choose your own. The skin that I was gifted, only skin I've ever known. Black is what I am, it's who I am, it is my pride. It's the strength on which I stand, where I refuse to be denied. Black speaks of where I'm going, how the world relates to me. Black speaks of where I've come from, heritage and history. But it's hard not to internalize the message all around. Before a word is spoken, that in black offense is found. Explicit or implied, yet from your view you cannot see the shackles to be broken until black lives full and free. That poem, I think, sets the context for why Tessa and I stand here delivering the apology today.
Well, my biggest takeaway is that it is important to apologize when you are part of the wrongdoing, the part of something that is undermining. It is very important to apologize before you could even go on to repair any of the damage. And then it is only then that you're able to start thinking about how to start to repair some of the damage that you have caused. And so my biggest takeaway is it is important for churches to apologize for their part in the evils of, enslavement.
We stand here as two black women who recognize and who feel honored by the significance of this moment and our role in this moment. We come from two different contexts. Tessa was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago and very aware of her history, very aware of her position as an African woman in the diaspora. I was born and raised in the UK, and I spent the greater part of my life almost completely disconnected from any sense of my true identity or history or heritage in a context which told me that to be black was not good.
So I've learned that slavery has happened for centuries, but the enslavement of Africans in the Caribbean was done in such a brutal way that has never happened before. The enslavement, chattel slavery, was an awful creation out of the minds, the evil minds of those who enslaved us, and that is what I want reparations for.
And I really feel that I have to be able to be part of those who say we own the problem in order to share the solution. And so we own the problem together and we share the solution together. And that's what this pilgrimage is about. We're saying to our colleagues from the UK, look, you come and tell us your pain, and we will also tell you our pain. And let us discern together what God is asking us to do and to be as God's people.
The most profound, I should say, is the moment that the apology was given. That moment at Webster United Reformed Church when Karen, explained the whole context that we placed giving the apology in, and then that actual giving of the apology. And that was pretty important for me because of how it made me feel. I was giving the apology on behalf of the United Reformed Church, but something inside of me was actually receiving it as well. So it turned out to be rather a profound moment in this trip.
We, the General Assembly of the United Reformed Church, mindful of our own history and that of our antecedent bodies, wish to confess and apologize for our role in transatlantic slavery and the scars which continue to blight our society, our church, and the lives of Black people in our midst and around the globe today.
This is a momentous occasion, and as our sisters have declared, a Kairos moment. This decision on the part of the URC is a reminder to all of us that God is still working to redeem us from sin and to reclaim us for life in fullness. We rejoice with the URC that they have mustered the courage to acknowledge their participation in the enslavement of African people.
We are a small church in the context of the United Reformed Church, and I think if we could get what we have done here in Jamaica out into the public, the UK public, well, firstly, get it out into the churches and, let them know what has happened and how that has been received. I think we begin to do something there.
It is a process in which we are engaged. And so while we must do whatever we can do at this time with whatever strongest potential effects we are able to generate, we must also at all times be remembering that it is a process that may even be beyond our time. So part of CRAFT's work going forward is to engage as much as we can an intergenerational task force. This is about finding younger people who understand what we are talking about.
I'm hopeful. I think I begin with hope. I'm trying not to put any negativity into that hope, but I think if we have led and if we lead and we pray that our leading will be by example, I am hopeful that it will take, perhaps it will take root and other churches will get on board and the UK society will recognize the importance of this journey, this kind of journey, this move towards repair, which starts with an apology, which begins to heal relationships. And I think if that is well handled by the media, or let's put it this way, if the URC shares this journey with the media, and they are able to demonstrate the importance of this kind of way of operating in the world, in terms of reparations, I think it would be impactful.
So that video was shot on location when Tessa was giving the apology in Jamaica, and that visit that was arranged through the Church's Reparations Action Fund in Jamaica also included representation from the Church of Scotland. Sally Foster-Fulton was there as the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, together with the Primus, Most Reverend Mark Strange, Primus of the Scottish Episcopal Church. So as the movement towards repairing justice as part of the legacies of slavery continues, we do so with our ecumenical partners here in Scotland. We're all at different stages in that journey and process, as Gordon Cowans was talking about in that video. But as far as the United Reformed Church is concerned, making the apology and the confession was the first stage in that. In terms of the action that flowed from it, the first stage was to offer anti-racism training to those who hold various roles within the life of the denomination. And that has now concluded, and there's an ongoing conversation about how that is then rolled out to wider within the life of the church. There was an intention to establish a number of opportunities for partnership working with projects here in the United Kingdom that are actively supporting particularly young people, and I think particularly young men from African diaspora nations living here in the UK. And then the third element was to work with the Church's Reparations Action Committee in Jamaica to be able to support projects, particularly in Jamaica through our church partners. And in order to do all that, the denomination committed itself to setting up a Legacies of Slavery Fund. Some of the funding for that is coming from central funds, but it's also, synods are also being asked to contribute to that fund. So at the point at which we have a request to make a contribution to the fund, that's something that we will be considering and taking action on as part of our ongoing commitment to the legacies of slavery. So an update there from Yvonne Coulter, our racial justice advocate. And that takes us to the Ecumenical Officer's report. And so I invite John Bremner to come and give that report. It's paper E. And there is a resolution number 4, as part of that report.
Oh, it's disappeared. Where is it? Moderator, thank you. The report is with the papers, and there's nothing particular that I wish to add to it, except to go back to the bit on nominations earlier on this morning, to say that if anyone who has an interest in ecumenical matters who would like to become part of the ecumenical reference group, I'm sure they'd be very welcome. And you don't need to be part of an ecumenical congregation in the sense of being a partnership. You don't even need to have any local experience necessarily. You just have to have an interest in and want to promote ecumenism, and you'd be very welcome, and have a word with the moderator or with me if you'd be interested. I think the report is there. The one thing that is still outstanding from the report refers to the ecumenical audit. There are some churches that have not yet put in their response to the ecumenical audit questions. Now, it may be that you think that your local church hasn't got anything ecumenical to talk about, and therefore you can ignore it. Well, actually, the lack of any ecumenical involvement in your area is just as important to us as knowing what is happening. So if your congregation, if your church secretary and your minister, if you are unfortunate enough to have a minister, have not yet filled in the form, please can you push them to fill it, get that filled in and sent back to Gemma at the office as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Otherwise, there is the resolution which we can come back to, but I'm just wondering, are there any questions, moderator, on the report as it stands?
Does anybody have a question or comment on the report? I'm sorry, I've lost my internet connection again, so someone will need to tell me if anybody online wants to speak. No?
No, it's good to be on a slot late on in business because no one asks difficult questions.
Okay, if there's no discussion on the report, then can I ask if we are ready to accept the report? So, orange cards, please, if you're ready to accept the report. Thank you. And then those who are voting members, could you use your green cards to accept the report? Those online, I can see some yellow hands in the distance. Thank you. The report is accepted. Let's move to the resolution.
Resolution.
We have got time for the video, unfortunately.
We have got. We haven't.
We have.
We have.
Yes.
Right. Thy kingdom come. Last year, for the first time, Thy kingdom come, which you'll see at number 2 on the report. Last year, there was a specific set of resources produced for use in Scotland, and several leading notaries from Scotland, notable people from Scotland, including our own moderator, were asked to produce a few minutes of meditation or thought for Thy Kingdom Come. This project is being started off quite a number of years ago down in the south, has spread worldwide, and is becoming quite an important aspect of ecumenical collaboration. But we could perhaps see what was produced last year by our moderator as a contribution towards it.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Sanderson and I serve as the moderator of the National Synod of Scotland for the United Reformed Church. In 2017, as part of a sabbatical, I began exploring more contemplative styles of prayer, drawing on both Ignatian spirituality but also a secular mindfulness approach. I have found that this provides me with a rhythm and pattern of prayer that supports me in my discipleship. Today's theme is God creates. If we turn to the words of Scripture, we can see that this is a truth proclaimed and celebrated by the psalmist. In Psalm 139 we read, "I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, that I know well." God has created each one of us in God's image and likeness, with care and compassion, in all our intricacy and diversity. The shades of our skin tones, the textures of our hair, the shapes of our eyes, the ways in which our brains function. Each element is fearfully and wonderfully made and worthy of praise. As we reflect on that affirmation of the psalmist, I invite you to join with me in a time of prayer which focuses on our breathing. Please pray with me. Turn your attention to your breathing, something that happens every moment of life's journey, but something we rarely notice unless it is causing us difficulty. Notice the sensations of air entering your body, its relative coolness, the feeling of your chest, lungs, diaphragm expanding. And then notice the sensations of air leaving your body, the warmth of air moving through your mouth or nose, your chest or lungs contracting. As you breathe, acknowledge this gift of life which comes to us from God who creates. As you sit and pray and allow the rhythm of your breath to settle and still yourself in God's presence, don't worry if you find your mind drawn to other things, planning for the future, dwelling on the past. When you notice this has happened, kindly and gently return your focus to your breath and God's gift of life to you and to the world. When you're ready to bring this time of prayer to a conclusion, you may like to recall the words of the psalmist. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Thank you. This way of praying has become part of my daily life as a disciple. It allows me and reminds me to connect with God, the one who creates and is the source and sustainer of life.
One example of the 10 or 11 meditations, which were 11, I think, meditations produced in a tremendous variety of material by a variety of church people in Scotland. The point of the resolution which we come to is to encourage local churches to promote Thy Kingdom Come as something which people in local congregations could get involved with. It's something that lasts from Ascension Day to Pentecost, so inclusive 11 days. And it's something which is not prescriptive. You don't have to follow a particular way of doing things. But it's an encouragement to pray, particularly for people who maybe for whom you may have a special concern. Pray for those who perhaps have no faith, people whom you know who have no faith, who you would like in some way to encourage to think about the Christian faith. See yourself as part of a worldwide community. It's only 11 days, and perhaps because of the shortness of the period, we can encourage members of our local churches to involve themselves in this. And for that, we bring the resolution before you.
Thank you, John. So Resolution 4 is before us. Synod encourages local churches to promote the Thy Kingdom Come initiative and issues the challenge to all within the life of the Synod to renew their commitment to prayer. So we have the opportunity for questions, comments. Yes, Fiona.
Fiona Bennett, Augustine United. I apologise if I'm speaking an awful lot. I put a question to you, John. I'm very cautious before promoting any material in our congregation to ask about its inclusivity, both in language, just basic words that we're using, but also in the nature of the way it presents both God and human relationships. I've not used this material before, although I have a feeling I might have contributed to it a few years ago in the form of the Lord's Prayer. And I'm just pondering whether we have any input or shape within that. And I just raised that as a question because I would be really cautious about offering in. What Lindsay did was fabulous. If it's all like that, I'm really happy. But I just ask that as a question, and I bring that to you for whoever inputs from the URC on our behalf. Thank you.
Would you like to respond, John?
Well, at this stage, we don't know what the material is going to be. And that is partly due to disruption taking place in other within the Anglican Communion elsewhere, because they were charged with leading the thinking, and things happened. So for this year, at this stage, we're not sure what the material is going to be. But there is a sense in which the local situation, the individual Christian, can adapt the material, the ideal of prayer to the local situation. There is no compulsion. I mean, at the end of the day, as you will see from paragraph 2 of the report, in 2B and C, the organisers prepare material, but that's really to set you off thinking. It's not prescriptive, it's a way of encouraging us to consider how we might adopt and use this small 11-day period for particular prayer. So, in response, the material hasn't yet been, but in any case, the material is there to get you thinking, and it's not that you must follow this particular format or these particular words. It's a way of getting us to explore, which I hope is a...
Thank you. Sarah?
I was just thinking the words, thy kingdom come. God's kingdom's already there, and our prayer needs to be, how can we join in with what he's doing?
Yes, we pray thy kingdom come, though it's part of the, there is a already here but not yet in its fullness, and we pray for the fullness of God's kingdom. Yes, but finding out where to join in is part of this process.
Sorry, it will be different for each community, because even working in the churches that I've worked in, my ministry was different in Clydebank to what it is in Dumbarton, and even different again to what it is in Drumchapel, and that's why it's important for us to meet and pray together.
Yes, it's a matter of saying that whilst it's locally it's different and individually it may be different, but we're still part of this global Christian fellowship coming together to pray during this period.
David?
Is this on? Yes. I must say, personally, I've always been rather irritated by the title of it. Well, it could have been Your Kingdom Come if you want. But on the other hand, it's a chance to be alongside a variety of people within the church. And being part of it, I suppose, overcomes whatever irritations one might have about the way it's initially presented, including possibly handing it to the Church of England to start with. But there we go.
It was, no one handed it to the Church of England. It actually emerged from the Church of England, but...
Do we have any more comments? Yes, Helen.
Moderator Helen Mee, I don't know if this is the right time or not, but I would like to suggest an amendment to the resolution.
And suggest an amendment. I was just getting excited by the thought of an amendment.
I'm wondering if it read, Synod encourages local churches to consider promoting, and everything else stays the same.
Okay. So, because we have an amendment, let me, just for the benefit of those of you who might be here for the first time, explain what happens when we have an amendment to a resolution. So we pause the discussion on the substantive resolution and we begin to discuss the amendment. It does need a seconder. Do we have either a Thank you, Stuart. So the amendment is proposed and seconded. We now invite either questions or discussion on the proposed amendment. So the proposed amendment is to consider promoting Thy kingdom come. So that is what is before us. Is there anybody who would like to speak or comment upon the amendment? Can we just hang on a second? About the people online can't hear you. Jackie's just coming.
Stephen Alexander, Helensburgh. This is a positive resolution we see on the board. The considered promoting is a wishy-washy one, and it will not be done. I would not recommend we go down that line.
Thank you. We've heard that comment. Barclay?
Barclay Bannister, Morris Memorial. I actually think that to change it to consider promoting gives local churches an opportunity to unpack it more and to consider it more deeply if they're being given the onus to consider it. And therefore, you may get, hopefully, a deeper and more meaningful outcome from it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other contributions to the amendment? Sarah?
Can we say prayerfully consider?
Now we're getting an amendment on an amendment, so I think we need...
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Is there a seconder for prayerfully consider? John, as the proposer of the amendment, would you be happy to accept prayerfully consider?
I'm not proposing the amendment.
No, but you're the proposer of the resolution.
I would be against the amendment, if I'm allowed to say that, because Synod is not, as in a previous resolution, instructing. Synod, by passing the resolution as it stands, is encouraging. And I think that covers the points raised both by Helen and Barclay. That this is an encouragement to explore what this might mean. It's not an instruction to do it. And I think that the resolution as it stands, I wouldn't go quite as far as Stephen in his, but I think that the resolution as it stands does actually cover the points, allow for the points raised both by Helen and Barclay. And it's certainly meant in the sense of encouraging an exploration of.
Thank you. Brian?
If we have to bring these to the churches and have discussion on it,
Sorry,
when
Brian,
are
could
you
you just
hoping...
say where you're from, please?
Oh, Brian Kitwood, Commonwealth URC. So what I was saying is, when we bring this to each congregation, when are you expecting to deliver materials that will guide us on this discussion or promoting the kingdom?
Can we hold
so
that
we know
thought?
where we're going, what path you want us to go down? Is that going to be by material given to us, or is it just by discussion in the congregation?
Can we hold that response to that until we've worked out what it is we're actually going to vote on? So, I don't see... So, Margaret?
Margaret Higton, student of the Scottish College. I don't often agree with John, but I completely agree that the word encourages covers everything, and we don't need to have an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Stuart?
Stuart Cutler, St Ninians and Stonehouse. My
problem with any resolution like this is that I know what you've told me about it. And so you're saying that we are deciding together to promote something that we mostly know very little about. And I'm okay with that because I know a bit about it, but I don't think that we should encourage people to promote something that we know very little about. And to add consider, I think gives us the opportunity to go away and find out a bit more about it before we do that. So I'm always hesitant when we say that, you know, everybody should do something that we actually, as a group, don't know very much about.
Any further contributions? I'm just looking online. Okay, this is where we are. I see no support for adding in prayerfully. Sorry, Sarah, so I'm not going to have that added into the resolution. We have heard a number of people voice their thoughts as to whether the amendment is helpful or not. So what we need to do now is to vote on the amendment. So I'm going to ask you to use your green cards. I'm going to read the amendment, and then those who are in favour of the amendment, please show, and please hold up your cards until we've had a good sense of what the number are, together with those online. And then I will ask those who are against the amendment to do the same. So the amended resolution is: Synod encourages local churches to consider promoting the Thy Kingdom Come initiative and issues the challenge to all within the life of the Synod to renew their commitment to prayer. Those who are in favour of this amendment, please show using your green card. Thank you. Those who are against the amendment, please show using your green card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I make it 18, 19, 20, 21. So Jan and I are agreed in our counting that there are 25 people who were in favour of the amendment, and there were 21 votes cast against the amendment. Now, this only needs to be a simple majority. We're not changing constitutions here or anything, so that's fine. So, on that basis, the amendment passes, and the amended resolution becomes the substantive resolution that we will now vote on again. John, there was a question from Brian about how we would get information about the resources. Could you please respond to that? And then we'll just check if there's any further discussion before we take the vote.
Yes, I take back what I was saying earlier about having a nice quiet spot after. Yes, as you'll see on the paper at 2C, there is actually a website, Thy Kingdom Come website. And yes, quite take on the ancient language, but that apart. So that website is where the resources for this year will be posted when they are ready. It is also the website where previous year's material is posted, along with a general explanation of this initiative. So I would encourage you to go and look at the website, and as we go past Easter and on towards Ascension, the material ought to be on the website at that stage. Did I have any other? Was that was?
Any final further comments or contributions before we move to voting on the amended resolution? No. Therefore, the resolution in its amended form is before us. Synod encourages local churches to consider promoting the Thy Kingdom Come initiative and issues the challenge to all within the life of the Synod to renew their commitment to prayer. Those who are in favour of the resolution, please show using your green cards. And those online, you're raising hands. Thank you. Are there any against? The resolution is carried. Thank you, John. Thank you. So we move to our final section of the Synod Mission Committee report, paper F, the Children's and Intergenerational Ministry report, and I invite Jess to come and make her presentation.
Hello. Oh, there's some of you still there. I know we've had a long day. We're nearly there. Keep coming. Come with me. Come on, we're nearly there. So, as you will have hopefully seen, I've had a title change. So we've gone for something smooth and snappy, and I'm going to deliver the whole thing for you so you can be impressed. My new title is now Children's and Intergenerational Ministry Development Worker for the United Reformed Church, Synod of Scotland. Thank you. I've been practicing. So I have put in the report, and you can see there that we've got what is intergenerational ministry, because there's a lot of people who don't understand what it is, or they're really confused about what it is, or they think it's another term for just children's ministry. Read the paper. I'm not going to talk about it today. It's on the front page of my report, so read the paper and it will explain it to you. And if you have any questions, you can come and talk to me. And I might just stare at you and be able to answer you, or I might just go, oh. So I'm going to move on to our next bit, because we're coming up for Easter. So I'm naturally going to talk about, can I have my next slide? Christmas! You weren't expecting that, were you? At Church House, we are developing our Advent packs, which we bring out every year. This year we are doing it differently. We are creating an Advent calendar. We are creating something that families can keep and reuse year after year, rather than creating stuff that gets hopefully recycled. This is to keep. I really want to highlight that the images are just for illustration. That's not the actual images that will be used. They are currently being designed by our in-house artists, but I just wanted to have something to show you. So there's cards that will tell the story. On the back you will have the story and a little prayer. There will be cards interspersed with that, which will have a wreath on it, candy canes, all of these, which give fun facts of why we see them at Christmas, and along with a little activity. And because we like to go full hog, there'll even be little blank cards of the characters for children to colour in, and you make your own nativity scene. So they are coming out. Now, I've got their 30th of August. I don't want to diss England, but England went, oh, we're in our summer holidays at that point, so we'll extend it. And I was like, aye. Because they looked at me and I went, we're back at school, we're fine. But so you have until the 8th of August to put your orders in. I will send more details around when I have them. I will remind you. But I am letting you know now, because it's based on the orders that are put in, that is how much they will run. If you do not put in a pre-order, there is no guarantee you will get packs for your families. And as I always say, if you've got grandparents in the church, it's great to buy it for them to gift to the grandchildren. And we also have the Small Grants Fund, which you've been hearing about. You feel free to come and use that. Go to a local nursery or your local P1s and say, would you like some calendars? So yes, that's that. Next bit up, please. I'm trying to be fast, but go through it all. Recharge Plus. Yay. Come on, people, work with me. Recharge Plus. Yay. Oh, bless you. So Recharge Plus this is our 3rd year of doing this. And I realized that I've never really shared the vision. All I've said to you is, come along, it's a conference day. And you've all been really lovely and gone, what? So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the vision. Down in England, they have a conference called Hand in Hand Conference. It's a children's and family ministry. It's been going for, I think, nearly 20 years. It runs over a weekend. They have lots of speakers. It's a big deal, and it is really good. When I came into ministry in Scotland, we had Deep Impact. We had Christian Resources Exhibition come in. We had the Message Trust bus that used to come around. We had the Bible bus that used to come around. We had a lot of things in Scotland. We now don't have anything. We don't have, even Urban Saints have gone down south. Our Care for the Family regional worker is no longer with us. The Message Trust is now all fully based in England. I don't think we have the bus anymore. CRE doesn't visit. Deep Impact has finished. We have nothing left in Scotland. So Karen and I are trying to fill that void. Karen is my Church of Scotland co-worker, and we're trying to fill that void by putting on Recharge Plus. And because we both have intergenerational in our titles now, it means that we can spread it out for more than children and youth. And we are desperately putting this on to try and support our workers, to recharge you, to inspire you, and to show you what's happening and give you ideas. And I'm sharing this because I want to ask for your help with it. I'd like to ask you to, first of all, pray for us. Pray that people will hear about it, that they will want to come, that they will want to experience the day. And I'd like to ask you as well to just come along. Or if it's not for you, ask somebody in your church or pass it on to a neighboring church. Say, did you know this is happening? Because what Karen and I would love is to end up doing it over 2 days, like the Hand in Hand conference down south. And I will be honest, this year I went down to Hand in Hand Ministries conference with Karen. I wanted to show her what I'd seen. The cost it took for each of us to go down is not feasible for churches to send an individual. They had put it in Birmingham, which we were like, yay, that's a bit closer, it's not Eastbourne. But hotel accommodation, travel, the ticket itself was a lot of money, like 3 digits. Very expensive. And yeah, I could not, hand on heart, say to any of my churches here, go, because it's just too much. It really is. So I am here to say to you, we are holding Recharge Plus. Please pray for us. Please take the cards that are on the table. Please either come along or hand them out. It is ecumenical. So it's not just Church of Scotland and URC. Anybody can come that's involved with ministry. Okay? It's for everybody. This is what we're trying to do. And to make it more exciting, could I have my next slide, please? Some of you are either going to give me a blank look. I have Bob Hartman coming. Some people are nodding and others are going, who? He is a Christian author, basically. He has been doing professional storytelling for over 30 years, and he has written over 100 books. I have some through there, which I can get out to show you just before you leave. But he's done books for both children and adults. And he is coming along to run 2 workshops for us, because he heard we had this on, and he was really excited about coming to Scotland, because he said to me, I rarely get to come to Scotland. So it's a really big thing for us to have Bob come in. He's going to do a couple of workshops, and he is also for adults. He will show you how to, because adults like stories, so he will show you how to take things from the Bible, craft a story around it, and much more. We also have digital ministry stream. We have a stream on how to create vision days. We have Godly Play come in to visit. We have a lot of stalls. We have a lot packed in to one day. We are going for it. So please hold us in your prayers. Please come if you can. And if you do, buy a Bob Hartman book because you'll sign it. I have asked. But yes, so that is Recharge Plus. So I'm just really asking that you support us with this. And put the date in your diary. It does say on there the 7th of September. That's wrong. That's the Sunday. I got my day wrong. It's the 6th. It's Saturday the 6th of September. And if you would like some money as well, if you want to bring a team from your church or a group, come and ask about the Small Grants Fund. We have the money there for this sort of thing. So does anybody have any questions or thoughts? Sliding away so we can get on? No? Good. Thank you. Where? Oh, yes, that's useful. Glasgow, sorry. It is, because Karen is Presbytery of Glasgow, it is based in Glasgow. And also we found that it is Central Belt, but it is often quite easy to get to, but it is in Glasgow, Bath Street. Okay, so sorry. I'm not very good at the information bits. I'm like, you should all know. You should just link in. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments to Jess on her report? Checking online. No, nothing there. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes the report from the Mission Committee. Therefore we move to what is, I think, now going to be our final item of business, which is a resolution which comes to us from Helensburgh United Reformed Church. This is just an opportunity to remind everybody who is here representing a church that it is possible, and is more than possible, it's very welcome, if local churches feel there is something that they wish to bring to the Synod meeting. And if you're not sure entirely how you should present that as a resolution, then please don't hesitate to be in touch. Those of us in the Synod are very happy to work with people, as we have in this instance, to enable something to come to church meeting and then on to Synod. So I'm going to invite Pauline Muscat from Helensburgh to come and propose this resolution. It's paper G and resolution 6.
Moderator, Synod, I've been coming to Synod forever, and this is the first time I've ever had to do anything like this, so bear with me. I bring you the resolutions. A little background is that the subject came to our church meeting from one of our members, Hazel McCorriskin, who is our Commitment for Life advocate. And she has made herself very knowledgeable about all things to do with Commitment for Life, and particularly Palestine and the occupied territories. So this is very dear to her heart. She has done a lot of research into it, and she brought this subject to our church meeting, and we agreed that we would bring it to Synod. There are people among you who know a lot more about it than I do, and maybe it's over a lot of our heads, but we felt it was important to bring this resolution. It's in its 3 parts. If anybody has any questions, I'm not sure I'd be able to answer them, but I have a little background, if that would help, in that Hazel felt that the URC has taken a principled course in response to the tragedy in Israel and Palestine since the first issue for help in 2009. In 2019, a group of 32 from all the URC synods visited Israel and Palestine and were very concerned with what they witnessed as to the effects of Israel's illegal occupation of the Palestinian territories. So following this, in 2021, General Assembly passed 10 resolutions on the situation in Israel and Palestine. Amongst these were 2 requesting that URC trusts and pension funds and synod trusts avoid knowingly investing in any international company which facilitates or profits from the occupation of these territories. In 2024, last year, with a worsening situation, General Assembly last year agreed 8 further resolutions, including one requesting further restriction on investments. To enable trusts to meet the 2021 request, the URC discussed with the CCLA, the Churches, Charities and Local Authorities investment company, who manage the Ethical Investment Fund, in which many of the URC assets are placed, about a new fund which would exclude companies connected with or who are benefiting from the occupation. However, the CCLA have now announced that they were no longer proceeding with this special fund, and so this is where we can help. So this resolution to Synod today is to open up some discussion on the issue and hopefully bring it up again at the General Assembly. Our resolution does not give details nor ask that we debate or discuss this today, but seeks to clarify whether the National Synod of Scotland wishes to follow those investment resolutions that were made, and so to continue to meet the General Assembly resolutions, in particular Resolution 45 from 2024. And this is the resolution in its 3 parts.
Thank you, Pauline. Thank you for sharing that bit of background with us. You'll see that in the paper we have reproduced the relevant General Assembly resolutions that are referred to in the actual text of the resolution. What I propose to do is that we have the opportunity to share in general discussion about the subject, the content of the resolution, but when we come to voting on it, we will vote in parts to make sure that we are clear about that. And I would like to invite Nick Mark, convener of our Resources Committee, to come and say a few words, both wearing his hat as the Resources Committee convener, but Nick is also a member of the URC Trust. And so you'll see that from the paper that we have been provided with, the Central URC Trust has engaged in considerable work on this issue, and Nick has offered to bring us an update to help us in our discussion. Thank you, Nick.
I'm going to be the doom merchant. I've been attending the URC Trust for 4 years, and last year we had a meeting with CCLA, and we expressed exactly the sentiments of this motion. And CCLA said, great, super, no problem at all. When it came to it, we found one Israeli company in which CCLA invested. And so that was sold. But what CCLA said to us was, are you kidding us? And we said, well, what do you mean, are we kidding you? And they said, well, if you seriously want to invest in the general stock market, then you won't be able to invest in anything, because every major company in the world has investments in Israel. Most of them have done it by, they don't actually have any direct companies, but they all have investments in Israel. So we've done the honourable thing, and we've pulled out of the one company that we had investments in, but basically every other company has investments in Israel. All the major companies you can think of. So we did take it to the group of investors that invest in our trust. And none of the others wanted to do anything. So the net result would be we could have a separate trust of some sort. It would cost an absolute small fortune to set it up, with very little benefit. And that's the difficulty. I mean, I entirely agree with the sentiments of this. And when this was passed at General Assembly, I think all of us who were involved in the investment side said, yeah, we agree with the sentiments, but how do we do it? And CCLA have said no, and every other stockbroker we've talked to has said no, we just can't do it. So that's really all I can truthfully say. And it is going to be, this particular motion you're bringing is being brought at every synod in the next few weeks.
Yes, I believe so.
As far as I'm aware, every synod is bringing the same motion virtually. I can only leave it there. I mean, we will do our best, but I'm not sure that we can actually give the right answer, if that helps at all.
Thank you, Nick. Just before we move to discussion, it is my understanding that URC Mission Committee, who is tasked with the responsibility of following through the resolutions that were passed at the last General Assembly in consultation with the Trust and the Investment Subcommittee that Nick has referred to, will be bringing more business back to General Assembly in July as further update on this. So, as you've heard, all the synods are being asked to address this issue. It may be that we find ourselves all in a situation where it is just practically impossible to carry out what we wish to do by decision of General Assembly, but it is coming back, and so we wait to see in July what comes back to General Assembly in light of the conversations that have been happening during the course of the year. But this resolution is before us, and so we have the opportunity for questions or for discussion. David.
Hello, David Coleman, Environmental Chaplain. Looking at the resolution, it does not say Israel, it says the Israeli occupation. That may be another hair to split, but I imagine there will be some companies who have invested in ways which have been oppressive and some who've simply invested. Again, it may be that we just can't penetrate the hedge of how it is as you described, but can we just raise that nuance, that it doesn't say not investing in Israel, it says the Israeli occupation.
Apologise, didn't see your hand there. Duncan.
Thanks, Lindsay. Duncan Walker, Treasurer of the Synod. Just to make it clear to everybody, the Synod in Scotland does not actually hold any stocks and shares in any particular companies. We have our investments through CCLA, we're investment managers and also investment managers for most Synod's investments, and we invest in their ethical investment fund. So we don't hold individual stocks and shares in the name of the Synod. We only hold have investments invested through CCL's ethical investment fund. So just to make that clear to everybody.
Thank you. Fiona.
Fiona Bennett, Augustine United. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Helensburgh for raising this. It's really, really important. And actually, even if we can't act on it by raising it, it keeps it in our consciousness. I remember sitting with a group of teenagers talking about justice issues, and they were saying how frustrated they were that things never seemed to change. I would like to say, Nick, in what you shared today about how we can't uninvest or divest because so many people, because all of the companies in the world really are invested one way or t'other, has changed the world. And it's changed the world because it's changed my perception. And for every person here whose perception has been changed, then the world has begun to change. And I think we need to hear that. I also want to respond to say, if it is going to be not possible because the purpose of this divestment is to challenge the state of Israel to change its behaviour towards the occupied territories of Palestine, if this is not an effective way, or we are unable to move this way, we need to seek other ways that are going to achieve the same ends. And so perhaps also it's about going back to mission committee, I'm using the right terms, in URC terms, and saying we would like to think, we'd like more as well, other options and other ways to address, to achieve the same ends. Thank you.
Any other points for discussion? I'm not seeing anybody online. Can I ask, by show of orange cards, are you ready to move to a vote on the resolution, and we will vote in parts? Orange cards, please, thank you. I only see orange and hands up online. Thank you. So we're going to move to voting on this resolution in parts. I'll read the section of the resolution. We have the text on the screen. There is the opportunity, if somebody wishes to make comment on the part of the resolution before we go to a vote. So, part 1 confirms its support of General Assembly resolutions on the avoidance of certain investments in the context of Israel-Palestine, resolutions 32 and 33 of 2021, making requests about companies linked to the occupation, and resolution 45 of 2024, making requests about any Israeli registered company. So the first part of the resolution is before us. Is there any further comment or discussion? In that case, can I ask those who are in favour of 1, please to show with their green cards. And online. Thank you. Are there any against? Thank you. So part 1 is carried. So bearing in mind what Duncan has just said, we also move to the second part, asks the Resources Committee to review the Synod's investments and if there are any holdings in companies linked to the Israeli occupation or Israeli registered companies, divest of these holdings as soon as practical. Is there any further discussion or comment on number 2? Angela, would you like to speak? Or is that just a legacy hand? It's a legacy hand. Thank you. Okay. Those who are in favour of the second part of the resolution, could you please show using your green card? And online. Thank you. And any against? The resolution is carried. And then we come to number 3. Asks the Synod Executive to report the actions of the Synod regarding this matter to the General Assembly Mission Committee ahead of General Assembly. And just to say that what we will do is not just simply inform the General Assembly Mission Committee that we've passed the resolution in each of its parts, if that's what we do. We'll also give a record of the conversation and some of the questions that have been raised for future ways of engaging in this topic to enable the Mission Committee in their deliberation and whatever they bring to General Assembly in July 25. So with that assurance, can I ask those in favour of the third part of the resolution to please raise their green cards? And online, I'm seeing hands. Thank you. And any against? The resolution is carried. Okay. So again, thank you both to Pauline, particularly to Hazel. I don't know if if she has been watching the live stream, and to the folks in Helensburgh and the church meeting for bringing this to our attention. I think it is something that Synod has welcomed. It is an ongoing conversation in the life of the United Reformed Church, and we realise just how complex it is to engage with issues of economic justice, in particularly in the global economy that we live in. So thank you for bringing that to us today. Well, I think we've got there. I don't think there is any remaindered business. Is there, Clerk? No. No. Yes, I am pleased to clarify that we do not need to meet tomorrow by Zoom. There was a sense in which genuinely we weren't sure how it was going to work. We've moved from the residential synod where, although we do lots more than simply business, there is a flexibility in the timing that we don't have within a day meeting. And conscious that there was a lot of business coming to us for committees, we thought the safest thing to do would be to pencil in at least an additional session, but we haven't needed to use that, and I hope that you feel it's not been too rushed as we've gone through the agenda, that we've had time and opportunity to share in our discussion time together. I would like to, just before we leave, take this opportunity to say thank you to a number of people who have facilitated our meeting here today, to Rutherglen URC for hosting us, particularly to the folk who've given up their time to come and serve us teas and coffees and refresh the coffee pots so that we are able to have enjoyed drinks during the course of the day, and who set up the room for us so that it was ready for our meeting. To Neil and the team from Sanctus Media for offering us support, enabling those who are not able to join us in person to participate as fully as possible in our meeting. Thank you for all your work. To John for playing for us, to Ailey for taking the minutes, to the Synod staff team, in particular to Gemma and to Jan for all their work in preparation for this meeting, and for all who serve our Synod in its different committees, whose product of their thinking and their hard work we have shared in today as we have heard things about their work, and we have made decisions about the various resolutions and pieces of work that have come to our attention. And finally, to everybody for participating in our meeting, whether you've been able to do that here in person or online, either in your home or with gathering with others from your church to join in together. Thank you all for being here and for sharing in our meeting today. We are going to close our time together with just a short final closing act of worship. So in a day of lots of words, let us just take a few moments to be quiet before God. Gracious God, we give thanks for this time together for stories shared and decisions made. We give thanks that you have been with us as we have gathered in person and through the gift of technology. We give thanks for all who serve our synod and who will continue the work reported upon and decided upon today. Bless each one with energy and commitment for the task. And may we each go back to our congregations, ready to continue giving an account of the hope that is within us. Amen. We sing together again a final song from God Welcomes All. When hands reach out beyond divides and hope is truly found, please sit or stand as you are most comfortable. So as we go back to our congregations from this synod meeting, may we go with courage, living the hope within us. May we go with joy, living the hope within us. May we go with love, living the hope within us. And as we go, may the blessing of God, who is known to us as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, source, guide, and goal of all that is, be with us now and remain with us always. Amen.